audience. And
everyone, I'd like to call to order the Vancouver City Council study session for Thursday, March 30th, 2023. The time is 3:05 p.m. I will do a roll call. Councilmember Wu. Here. Councilmember Cersei.
Here.
Here. Councilmember Henderson. Here. Councilmember Martin. Here. And Councilmember Barber.
Hardly hear you though, Mayor.
Can you hear me, Mary?
No.
Oh.
I could right before you started the meeting and then I can't.
Oh, so.
Are you having the same problem, Seth?
Yeah, same problem. I could hear everybody, every single conversation, but now I can't hear anything.
okay, we're trying some technical assistance here. Let's see.
That's better.
It's getting better.
We may have to mute this computer.
I was guessing on when you were calling my name.
So was I. I looked for the pause after Wook, like we were normally doing the left to right.
Exactly. But I thought, oh, I think I just heard her say Martin. So here,
Can you hear us better now?
not a lot.
I may have city clerk listening. I may have you come down to see if you can fix this.
Hey, Tracy, will you try talking with your head facing the way you are now?
Yes, can you hear me any better?
I can hear
Yes,
you perfectly clear now.
perfect.
But when you
Wow,
just-
okay, so
it goes away.
maybe we may have to move the owl, or I'll just have to look in that direction. Remember to look in that direction.
I picked this microphone is what I did. I changed it to the computer, the laptop computer instead of the owl.
And it's picking up better.
So it's picking us up.
Jenny,
better.
can you talk to see if they can hear you?
Yes,
Can anybody hear us over here? Hi, Mary Barber, can you hear me?
Yes, Jenny, I can hear you.
Okay.
Okay.
Lee, can you speak, please?
Sure, I can speak.
okay, so you can hear everybody now?
I think we're good.
I think we're good.
Okay, if you start to not be able to hear us again, just raise your hand. And we'll see what we can do.
Okay, thank you.
You are welcome. Okay, so we are actually going to move agenda item 4 up to the first item, our unlimited voted bond. And this report comes to us from our finance director, Dave Rodenbach, and I'll allow you to introduce our guest, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, members of council. This is a UTGO or a voted bond. And this discussion came up because this is the last year we're going to actually levy a tax to pay off a voted bond, and that was for the Edmund vote bonds. And the last payment occurred in 24, but we collect for that the year before, so we have the money to pay the debt on that in the subsequent year. And we thought it might be nice to consider because we can't afford it, and we have some huge projects coming up, and they seem to be voter interested projects. And the thought was this bond would slide in and replace what the voters had approved back in 2005. And it won't come in at the low levels that we're at with the 2005 right now, because that goes down with over time and the property values. But what you're going to see with this, the interesting part of it is if you were to go in at high with this, at, I think 10, 15 million, you're going to be right about the same levels as when 2005 bond was approved in terms of cents per $1,000 assessed valuation and the burden on the taxpayers. So with that, we have Dave Tregaser here with D.A. Davidson right next to me, and Scott McJanet from K&L Gates, and they'll talk to you about the nuances of this. And we have a big presentation. I told Dave to go quickly through it because I thought council might prefer some interaction and questions as opposed to just a dry presentation running through this. So with that, I'll just turn it over to Dave Tregaser and
Not that the presentation's gonna be dry. I'm sure.
not at all.
Here, this is.
It's not a quick swan.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mayor, Council, I'm Dave Tregaser, Managing Director with P. Davidson. I've had the pleasure of working with the city for many years. And so about a month and a half ago, I came and gave this full bond 101 voted bond to Katrina and Dave and went through it. And it's in your packets. I was just gonna kind of hit the highlights of that and go from there and answer your questions. And so if you have your presentation, one thing that I did was, first thing I did was look at overall tax rate in other cities in Pierce County, and that's included on slide 3 of the presentation. And it currently shows the city with one of the lower tax rates, about 76 cents per thousand. There are a couple that are lower and everybody else is higher. And Dave mentioned 6.5 cents of that is for the voted bonds, paying off tax bills from 2024. We also reviewed different types of bond issues. One were voted bonds that Dave mentioned, and when you do that, you need a 6% approval. Like most schools go for voted bonds. And they need 6% approval, and you have to have a 40% turnout as based on the last presidential election. And so those are the 2 hurdles for voted bonds. But the good thing about voted bonds, I'm sorry, what a question, sir?
Just quick, do we know what number that is? How many people? Probably pretty big.
Yeah, I can get that for you.
All right.
But once you meet that turnout requirement, you need to get 60% yes votes. And those are called unlimited tax bonds. And the good news is that if you go to the voters and they give you voter approval, they also give you an excess levy to pay the debt service back on those bonds. And that's certified every year, just like your vote bonds have that. So you have an instant cash flow of payment debt service on those bonds. Conversely, if you not go to the voters, you can issue non-voted councilmatic bonds, similar to what we did just in the last couple of months. And they're issued with the vote of the council. And there's still a full faith and credit inflation general fund for those. And the city has also issued revenue bonds before. We pledged this year the revenues of the water sewer utility, and then LID bonds that are pledged solely by improvements in the local district. So we're going to talk about voted unlimited tax bonds. Now on slide 5, I put together what I call a statutory debt capacity. And what that means is under state law, you can issue voted bonds up to 2.5% for park and open space purposes. And even if you issued $10 million, it's the kind of the third one down there. I just put a hypothetical $10 million. You still have over $108 million of statutory capacity available in that category. And you can see in the top part, which is your non-voted capacity, you still have 65 million of non-voted statutory capacity. So a lot of debt capacity because the city does not have very much debt outstanding comparatively. Next slide, we just talked about those voter requirements I mentioned previously. You got to stay within your 2.5% for your section of bonds, for voted bonds, or your AV, you're way well within that. You use the proceeds for the project you want to go to the voters for. I mentioned that 60% yes, 40% turnout, and that's defined below there. Next slide has ballot resolution dates that you need to pass to get on the election. So if you're considering, going to the voters, in either August or November of this year, you can see the dates how we backtrack to times when the resolution needs to be filed, either May 12th or August 1st for those dates. I also gave an update of the bond market to the city. And you guys are familiar with the bond markets because we were just in there for that private placement bond for the LPGO bonds. This is a 20-year history of a composite of high-grade municipal bonds like the city. You can see that with the pandemic, we were at all-time lows for a couple of years. That's changed markedly in the last year, but also it's starting to come down again because we're starting to get some hand on inflation, which is a real problem with the bond market. Inflation means higher interest rates. Next, we talked about the city's credit. You guys are a great credit. Slide 9. You have a AA2 rating from Moody's Investor Service, which is a high investment grade rating. Voted bonds are readily acceptable in the bond market. A lot of bond investors would want to invest in the city because of that pledge and your ability to make debt service payments. I gave a history of kind of the management factors and the economy and the other information that goes into determining a bond rating. But you guys are in a good place to access the bond market. Next, we got into looking at some hypothetical structuring for your bonds for this voted bond issue. We looked at different terms of bonds, 15, 20, 30 years. You know, the shorter the maturity, the less interest over the life you pay, but the actual payments are higher, just like a mortgage. 20 years is the most common that people go to the voters for. You'll see that throughout the state. You can go up to 40 years under state law. If you go to, for example, 30 years, there's much higher interest over the life of the bonds, but your actual payments and the lower tax rate would be in place. So there's different trade-offs, and we looked at those in some different details of some scenarios, and that is really back on slide 13. I'm going to go to slide 13. You can't read all this because there's a lot of numbers on here, but this looked at the 30-year, 20-year, and the 15-year scenarios. They're summarized in Dave's letter that he sent to you folks. For example, the impact on the median household, which is about $715,000 currently of AV, would be about 13 cents for a 30-year financing, 15 cents for a 20-year financing, and 18 cents for 15-year financing. And you can see how those rates on the far right go down slightly as your tax base goes up. We've been very conservative with these projections in that we've assumed current interest rates plus 100 basis points, 1 full percent, because your bonds would be issued for quite a while. We've also only assumed like a 1% growth in your tax base every year, so we're very conservative. Because remember, interest rates are not locked in and your tax levies are not locked in until the bonds are sold. And those wouldn't be after your election, a number of months down the road. So we're required to make these good faith estimates, not to be representative. We also put information in here about the some legislative changes and public disclosure conditions. I'm sure you're familiar with all that information. And I would like maybe to, I'm going to hand this over. Unless you have any questions about the numbers for the bond market, I was going to introduce Scott to talk about any kind of legal issues and the drafting of the resolution and all the formal things that the council would have to do to consider being on the ballot.
So, first of all, do you think that we're going to slowly start seeing interest rates, as your chart was showing, starting to decline, given the fact that we think maybe we've got to hold on inflation a bit? Hard to tell. So
If we keep getting positive inflation numbers, you expect interest rates to come down. So, and also say that the bond market is kind of perverse. We like bad news.
yeah,
Because what happens is when we had the bank crisis just a few weeks ago, there's what we call flight to quality. Money goes from equity to other parts of the world into the US Treasury market. And when money goes into the Treasury market, Treasury yields go down. And municipal yields, which you're sharing, kind of pegged off Treasury yields, they go down as well. So if we have instability, if we have lower inflation, those things would bode well for, when we go back to the market. We do have the flexibility. Once your voters approve an issue, we can adjust the timeline and not sell bonds for a period of time and try to time the market or be in a time when there's less other bond issues competing in the market. So we have that flexibility as well. But you're right, generally speaking, lower inflation would be lower interest rates would be lower tax rates.
So
You talked about 15-year, 20-year, 30-year,
Yeah.
and median house price and those kinds of things. When do we hear your exact recommendation?
Well, that's what this process is all about, to look at the trade-offs. And then before we get to the situation where we're talking to this gentleman about doing a formal resolution, we determine that maximum term.
So for talking terms, we can't say that it's 18 cents per thousand on a median price home for a 20-year at this point. Is that right?
Well,
Or whatever the number might be.
I mean, that assumes a hypothetical $10 million. You'd have to determine the par amount of the bonds. And then you have to determine the maximum maturity. And then we could, at that point, we all talk about it, then we could, get more formal about the numbers.
I'm just jumping in.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It is a great question though, and a big part of that, as they mentioned, is figuring out what it is that we want to put on the bond, which is the next part of this that will come to you at the next study session. Is Jennifer and Jeff have been working on a list, sorry, Jennifer, Jeff, not that way. Have been putting together a list of projects that the council's been talking about with cost estimates, and we'll be presenting those to the council. So if you want to proceed with the bond, then you'll be able to choose those projects, and then that will help to inform what that cost would be.
Of the recommended projects, council gets to prioritize and say what we like.
Well, the council will have to decide which ones go on the bond. Because whatever we put into the bond to the voters and when they approve it, we will have to deliver.
Just a little food for thought too. When I started here back in October of '97, we had an assessed valuation of $700-800 million in the Garland. Now it's right around $4 billion. And so if you're talking 15-20-year bond, I don't know if I see that trend significantly changing. And so what you're going to see, we're going to see some conservative numbers, but the reality generally with our financial planning is we tend to end up doing a little better.
For this one word, Dave, we looked at our good credit rating, A2, double A2. I think the city owes that to you and me. But he's done a really good job of putting in that position.
Thank you so much.
Much appreciated.
Thank you so much. I mean, one thing known, we couldn't do it without the support of the councils. Because you folks support the policies that we put in front of you. And you listen and enact everything. So it really is a team effort. And we really appreciate you saying that. Thanks.
So we're talking about 18 cents per thousand, but because our current bond is going to be retired soon, is that essentially 18 cents per thousand? I mean, I was understanding that it may not increase because if the bond were to expire, we didn't do anything, then our cap rate would go down.
By 6.5 cents per thousand.
Okay.
That's the extra right now. When we first put in those bonds, they were, as I recall, around 15 cents per thousand.
And then it's
Ballpark.
Because we clean up the principal, so.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so people would see not a full 18 cents per thousand, but maybe 12.
No, this is that under the 15-year option. That you structure it, so it is 18 cents.
This is the only bond. The other one goes
It
away.
will be gone.
Yeah.
And so when he says 18 cents, it's 18 cents.
Oh,
What always sells me on a bond. But one of the things is they say that this is not a new bond, it's your taxes aren't gonna go up. This is just replacing your old bond. Are we gonna be able to say that?
Well, the tax rate is gonna be higher.
Yeah.
But, if you hadn't had that old bond,
Sure.
if they're used to paying 6.5 cents, they're going to 18 as the worst case. If they didn't have the old bond, you're going from 0 to 18, so it'd be an 18.
Right.
So it's a bigger.
I'm just looking to see this, so.
Yeah,
And $1 million a year, assessed, or $1 million assessed valuation, you're talking $180 a year. For the park, just to plan.
And that's also, I think, a good selling point is breaking it down what it would be for the average.
I think we're gonna need to do that, because when you look at this, people aren't gonna know, and so then. It's to know what my tax rate's gonna go up, so.
Is it 4 billion in assets? Is that what I heard?
$4 billion in assessed valuation.
Excess valuation, but we are only allowed to do 2% of that for this bond.
For voted parks.
Okay. Okay, and then as assessed valuations increase. Does that also give then the city, it's tied to that, it's a formula, not a fixed
The
rate.
rate goes down.
Oh, the rate will go
Right.
down, so you're not borrowing more than you needed to, so say if we go from 4 billion to 5 billion, we're still not staying.
But 18 cents will go down to
so
Okay,
17, 8, 16, 15, whatever. It's gonna keep going down.
And it will open up additional capacity within that 2.5% that you have borrowed, that's unborrowed capacity.
but we can't, can we go over the, like, if we say we're gonna borrow 10 million in this instance. Can we go over getting more than $10 million?
The voter authorization will represent
Just for the total, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That incredible increase in assessed value is due in lot to all the construction in homes, et cetera.
Yes.
And we're not going to see that. So it's something to keep in mind. We're not going to see that kind of a increase.
No, not necessarily.
Yeah, it's a function of both new construction and revaluation.
Yes, yeah, it's both.
Councilmember Barber.
Yes, thank you. I'm just wondering if you could address a little bit. It seems like there's a process that happens that's outlined on the slide that's on our page 8, as far as the filing deadlines, the ballots being mailed, the election dates. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about the process that needs to happen before we get even to that resolution filing deadline, because I'm assuming, I'm looking at those dates, and even the May 12th one would be hard for us to meet. And I'm also wondering if we have any information yet on other bonds that would be on upcoming election ballots, so that we know what, shall we say, competition there is. I think PSD is thinking of something, and I may have heard that the fire department was also thinking of something. So I wanted to get some of that kind of what's the process that isn't on that slide.
Councilmember Barber, that we've heard from the fire district that they will be going in August. I do not believe that the school district is going for another one this year.
Okay, thank you.
We're going to pick the election where we had the greatest turnout. So we have the average turnout.
What Dave and I have been talking about and what we would recommend would be to go in November because of the greatest turnout capacity, as well as the fire department being in August. We wouldn't want to compete with that per se. And also it would give us adequate time to go through the project list with the council, identify total costs and draft up the package.
That's kind of what I was wondering. That one seemed like the earliest that we could do, knowing the time frame that we work upon. And it also seems to give us time to educate voters.
I did put together a more thorough timeline on slide 12 that fits into that category and plans for November 11th.
You're ahead of us.
That's what we
Creative directions.
Any other questions
What's
from council?
the minimum you would recommend the city going for, and what would be the maximum you would recommend the city going for? Something like for parks, I'm saying. Is there a threshold or is there, the
There's not really a minimum threshold. It's just, if the issue gets too small, there's fixed costs of doing the sheet your time, that type of thing. And then on the large side, are you clearly within your statutory authority? Do the tax rates make sense for your citizens? That type of analysis. And from a credit perspective, is the financing adding too much debt to your debt load? But as I mentioned before, you folks have very little debt. Your tax base is large. You have ample statutory authority. So, I mean, the numbers that you're talking about just throwing around are well within the ballpark of being acceptable in the bond market.
We kind of sort of have a list of projects that we would want to.
We do, and so from this and from this conversation, what we're hoping to get from the council is yes, proceed with additional information and bring back the project list that Jennifer and Jeff have been working on so that the council can have the very necessary discussion of which projects we would want to put on the bond, because once we know that and the cost estimate, then we can get further great advice from these folks on the terms and amount and rate and so forth.
There's a lot of actions here that the city would have to do with staff time. It's a lot. If we want to.
I don't think so. I think for most of it, we're gonna contract out that out, because number one, I don't know that we can run a campaign, if you will. It's very difficult since we don't have the knowledge, and borrowing money with these two gentlemen is easy. They're so professional and get things out. We do have to supply some information,
Mhm.
like, probably coverage, rate ratios, and some of the scenarios we're talking about on this type home, that, you know, level value home, how much tax. You know, factual questions like that, we have to answer, but. I
You want to
think
just thinking like presenting factual information to the Kiwanis, Rotarians, Chamber of Commerce, citizens. Signage, everything else, so we think we might contract that.
No, we would want to do that in-house and we would ask for the council's support in that as well.
Okay.
You all are, you know, great advocates for the city. We can obviously give presentations, but we would like the council to, you know, you're all involved in groups as well. So you're a big part of getting that message out.
How does the school board do it?
Same. Creston Bar went to a lot of meetings, Downtown Waterfront Alliance, the Chamber, Rotary, all the Rotaries. All the different clubs, and also her board members attended as necessary or as they could. But a lot of it was Creston.
No, the schools are really a well-oiled election machine, because they're coming back to the voters, not just for voted bonds. They're there every couple of years for their, what they call the DKO levy, like maintenance and operation levy. So they've got their committees set up, you know, typically, and they're used to doing it.
Transportation.
Tax levy, capital levies, they, you know, they're before the voters much more than most municipalities.
And I would assume, Katrina, that we may utilize some of our communication plan that's gonna happen for the comp plan. If this were to go forward, we would. This would be part of that outward communication to the community of what things are gonna look like or could potentially look like. And Facebook, Gigabyte, you know, all of our other channels of how we get information out to the public. We would be utilizing all of those on a regular basis as well.
I would think that politics would play a part in choosing what projects. I mean, we can't have it all focused on the youth. You know, we need to spread the projects out in order to get more support from the widest range of voters.
Yeah.
So.
And you'll see that in the
something
list.
For all of us, keep in mind. I think it's to spread those projects out
Mhm.
to be attractive to the most people.
Yep.
Yes.
And that's been some of the advice that we received from these fine gentlemen as well as, you know, we have there's a youth project that I think we all know about that. A lot of people maybe want to have funded, but we also have historic projects like the Wilkinson Barn, and I think we've talked about that needs to be stabilized and looked at for potential, has a lot of potential to be a future public event venue. And so there'll be different projects that meet different voter preferences that if we can hit on those would increase the likelihood of it passing.
And voter agency.
Yes, yes. You know, kind of a something for everyone, and parks are unique in that they do apply to everybody.
And let me just emphasize the point you made earlier in terms of on the legal side of it, when you're passing your election ordinance that will go out to the voters, it specifies the ballot title in there. And it contains a list of projects that you're presenting out to the voters. So having that right mix and sort of nailing that down on the bond council side, we always want to preserve as much flexibility for you as possible. And we will write your actual bond ordinance with the ability to reallocate funds from bond projects. You don't lock yourself down to a specific dollar amount per project. Or if you have excess funds, to be able to use it for additional projects or redirect it back to debt service. We always want you to have as much flexibility as possible. But what you are definitely locking yourself into is the main projects in the election ordinance. That's what goes out to the voters, that's what they're voting on. And when you're crafting the ballot title, it's principally descriptive. And we will also work with you in terms of positioning it to sell the proposal as best we can out to the public as well. But that's where you get kind of stuck with some of the parameters you're going to think in terms of financing, not to exceed dollar amounts, not to exceed term amounts, and what that estimated levy rate per mill is going to be.
So I have a question. Does this mean that if we have an item, and I'm gonna just throw this out there, because I think we had something for our seniors, we might pick up a good amount of votes there. But if we put something on there for our seniors, and it must happen, so there is no option of it not happening.
Effectively, yes.
Okay.
You'd scale the project there, you would expect to make up any shortfall. It increased,
Okay,
it became impractical for other reasons entirely, after God destroys the senior center or whatever. Then there's a process for redirecting and reallocating that money within the project list. Or directing it to other funds, but then you have public hearings and there's
got it,
further council action before you'd be able to just shift projects.
got it, thank you. Hopefully, we won't see the cost increases like we've seen since the pandemic. But in a
Great.
situation like that, you've, I'm sure, been experiencing now where costs have gone up sometimes 30, 40, 50% or greater. What's occurring then? They have to scale back their projects and still stay with these bondholders would have to scale back their projects. Or find another way to fund the additional costs. You still can't go over that with unfortunately with these issues occurring.
You have an existing authorization that you can continue to use, you have that sort of in your back pocket, and it lasts for a long time. You could be like, we're waiting away the costs to go down, we're gonna wait a couple of years. And that authorization will be valid for a decade. But you know, unless it's a very temporary blip, construction costs to some extent to cut that down.
Yeah.
You can go up for supplemental authorization to cover that gap, another voter election to cover that gap. We've had districts go for, you know, state matching funds or grant funds to supplement that. And, or you can supplement it with your non-voted debt bucket, which is also a giant capacity. You've got 112 million there. I love that we're doing this as go to the voters, speak to the public. We're not just gonna do it ourselves with our non-voted capacity. But if you did need to do a small gap filling to get the rest of the money for that voter authorization, you could do an LTGO bond.
So sequencing wise, when we issue the bonds first, to say that we've got. Yeah, we've got the quotes for design build. But we don't have the front quotes yet. Do we get the front quotes first? And then issue the bonds, or do we issue the bonds first and then go the other way? Okay, what's the sequencing?
I would recommend we go get some level of conceptual design and estimating first. Yeah, which some of them we have. I mean, we're on, depending on which project, we have some of that already.
Yeah.
Or we're proceeding with some of that already.
So then if we have, say, 4 projects we've identified and one or two projects seems to be a little bit more than we had expected. We could do the appropriation of the bond fund accordingly to that and scale down the other two. I'm just trying to be first. Scale down the other two projects. So we don't get in a situation of cost overrunning or having funding for what we buy on, so to speak.
We could do that, and we could also, for the, in your example, one or two projects we don't yet have solid numbers on or better this month. We could just increase the contingencies for those.
And so when you come back to us, you'll come back with the amounts of the projects. Okay.
We'll have general scope of work and rough order of magnitude costs.
Okay, great.
And you can also additionally always do a good faith in scoping as we go down the line. And it would have been great to have had that secondary structure for storage or whatever, but we're not going to do that because costs increase.
Mhm.
And that's within the scope of your voter authorization. You are not going out and attaching blueprints or we're 45% design complete range exactly. That's not at all. You're doing a general description and you're allowed within the good faith communications that you put out to the public in terms of your marketing and promotion of this bond. You're allowed to make adjustments with that to get a project that fits the dollars.
And these bond funds cannot be used for maintenance and operation, correct?
Correct. Just count that, just count that.
But not programs you have.
No, yeah, correct.
So we're looking for general consensus from the council, whether or not we should move forward and bring the project list forward to council.
I'm here, I'm seeing nods
Okay.
all around, so great.
So we have that scheduled at an upcoming meeting, and we will look forward to having that conversation. If you
Okay.
have ideas, I'm sure that Jennifer and Jeff at least have awareness of all of the conceptual projects. But if you have ideas, feel free to reach out to them and let them know.
Thank you so much for being here, and we appreciate all your knowledge on this and look forward to seeing you again next time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave, very much as well.
Well.
All right. Thank you. So noting time, we'll just move right along to our strategic plan, 23-24 strategic plan, and this report will be from our city administrator, Katrina Knudsen.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, I hope that you've had a chance to read the memo and the attachments to this, noting our time constraints today. I just want to, there was a copy that had green on top of it. That was the old strategic plan that had all of the items that we have accomplished. This new blue version is, it should be 2022 to 24, since we will correct that, but it maintains the vision statement that the council had previously adopted. It adds in new projects that were budgeted in the 2023-24 budget. The big change here you see at the bottom is a 6th priority, council priority. We did our best from the council retreat to say what this priority is for the council, and it is provide a safe, healthy, and inclusive community. And today we're really looking for concurrence or changes to that to finalize the language of that new priority, if that is in fact what council desires. And then any what's implementing goals for that priority.
The projects on the right-hand column, the name priority.
Whoops, can you repeat
Projects
that?
on the right-hand column, are they listed in any priority?
No.
On the green version, the original, there was an asterisk after adopt climate and sustainability action plan. I always worry about asterisks. The big print, give it the small print, took it away. And it's gone. I just was wondering.
Let's see.
Because that was unbudgeted.
I don't know if Josh is still listening.
Yeah. the
Roger, I couldn't
asterisk-
hear your question.
Oh, on the green priority, the original one, under the adopt climate and sustainability action plan, there was an asterisk at the end, which is now gone. So I just want to know what that asterisk meant.
The asterisk meant that it was not included in the 2022 budget because the last strategic plan was for 2022. This one is for 2023, 2024, so it doesn't have the asterisk because it is in the budget now.
Works for me, thanks.
Councilmember Barber, did you have a question?
Yes, I did. I have been thinking about this, and when I got the latest versions, it occurred to me that, at least based on my experience with strategic plans, I'm not sure this is much a strategic plan as it is a plan of priorities from the council and the staff standpoint. Because we're listing tasks or tactics as well as some strategies. And I just would like to ask how people would feel about calling it a 2-year priority plan or 2-year priority list or something instead of a strategic plan. I guess part of it comes from looking at creating a citywide communications plan is listed under the priority for services and facilities, but it really supersedes all of the goals and priorities and that kind of thing. So it occurred to me that there were a lot of things that would be listed differently and handled differently in a true strategic plan, as opposed to staff and council priorities. So I just wanted to toss that out there for discussion.
I think it looks exactly like a strategic plan, because you've got what needs to be done, what you're gonna do, and when you're gonna do it. So that needs a plan, just not priorities of projects or desires. The way you got it laid out, to me, it looks like a plan. So I'm in agreement with keep it like it is. I don't think Councilmember Barbara was saying, change the format, were you just saying change the title?
I would like to change the title, and in the future, I would like to change how we write it, but I don't want to do that right now. I think that we've made a really good step in creating this plan, but I don't know that it is what I have ever experienced as a strategic plan before. But it's more of a plan for what we want to do. It's a lot of them are not strategies, they're tactics. So I just wanted to toss it out. I'm not willing to, lay on my sword for it, but
Councilmember Barber and I talked about this a little bit earlier today, and I think that this blends. I don't disagree with her that it's maybe not typical, but it does have the strategic part where it has priorities and goals. And it adds an accountability portion, which can be important when we're dealing with a legislative branch and executive branch trying to work together to get things done. And so I don't disagree that it could be done differently in the future in terms of maybe making it more document driven, where the residents may be able to know more about these plans. But I do think that it has the bones of a strategic plan in terms of priority and goals.
You're exactly right. I mean, all this comes from different backgrounds and all this have seen strategic plans in a dozen different kinds of formats. So you happen to have chosen this one. And I think it's excellent. And I don't want to spend any time on talking about changing the name's a name, It's a strategic plan to me. I respectfully say that to Councilman Barber, but let's move on and look at what we're doing. It's brown in me, I guess.
Yeah, brown.
Lots of brown in the room.
There is a lot of brown.
There is.
Yep.
Color, we're saying color with that term, right?
Yes.
Anyway, so I hear what Councilman Barber's saying, and we as well, and I think once we get to it, there's some nexus that each one of the departments will have when we look at the goals. When we take a look at the goals and how they're tied to the actions and then how they're tied to the action plan, right? So that's kind of building up the business plans for the respective departments.
Yes, exactly.
And that's where you don't see this is meant to be high level. I think once you do that, then it fits pretty nicely. People find the most mapping of it, if you will, for lack of a better term. So
Yeah, and we had an all staff meeting on Tuesday morning where all of the employees, we gathered and we looked at the strategic plan and we talked about how the council's main job is to cast vision for the city and where we're going. And it's our job as the employees to execute that vision. And that all of us, each department, we all work toward implementing that. And so we're working on an internal mission statement for staff that we will, how we know that the work that we're doing executes the vision that the council is setting. And so that may be a different document for each department and how they are helping to achieve this. And that is more strategy than what is listed here.
we see the value in what they're doing is accomplishing these goals, and that's huge, right? You're already doing a really good job with that. And then at some point, it'd be wonderful to be able to have certain updates on the website for everyone to be able to see it, what we've accomplished.
We are working on that. Yeah.
Love it. Thank you.
Any other comments? Do we, is there concurrence on council? You won't hurt our feelings if you don't like the wording of the priority, but that's as close that we took from the retreat was provide a safe, healthy and inclusive community. And it was surrounding police and public safety and being a healthy community, providing opportunities for health for our community and being inclusive, that we are an inclusive workplace and an inclusive city.
I think that says it right there, what we're talking about. And clearly.
Okay.
So, yeah, inclusive, though, what are we adding as a task? We got a lot of health safeties in there, health.
I thought, I forgot the
What is be inclusive?
There is under Foster a Healthy City Organization, the review and update the city's DEI program.
Yeah, I'm wondering maybe that could be moved down there, that fits a little bit better. I don't see anything on inclusion or inclusivity, yeah, so that would be a good place to put it. Still have to do it, so. That's it.
And probably update safety manual and accident prevention program that can move
There's a
down.
few that-
And there's a few that can move
Yeah.
down, but that's why we wanted to make sure first that you all
No,
had
it's a-
consensus around that sixth goal before we started moving a bunch of stuff
Yeah.
around.
Yeah, you did a nice job on
You
it.
did.
Is there a place to put the service expectation? I think that's something we want to have in our city, meet our citizen service expectation.
Yes, performance standards are something that we're hoping to get to. I think the first part is to establish this. And then establish how this meets, how this fits into each department, and then we can work on performance standards, but your point's well taken, and it's something that we definitely will work on.
I think if we're gonna show this to the public, it'd be nice for them to know that we're working on
Yeah.
meeting their expectations.
And I think, the police department, they do that by looking at how many calls did they take, how many were closed, all of those things. And I think, it can be easily done for permitting. And Carl and his team are working on how to more effectively report that out. With Shannon coming on board in HR, there's a lot more data and how things are being done. And then Jeff with all of his projects, I think, anyway, so we're going to come up with something that is easily understandable and can communicate what we're doing, because it's a lot.
Councilmembers, Storsett has his hand raised.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I was just looking at the last one. There's a lot that are, there's some synergies between them, obviously. But I just on the last one, provide a safe, healthy, and inclusive community. I'm good with that language, but I was just looking at, across there as far as like actions or routine or annual. And I would like to think that a lot of these things that are over in the project plans would become things that are routine and annual as well. Like for, support of youth and teen activities. Because in our discussion at our retreat, we talked about it. Well, I know we're looking for a senior center and senior programming, but when we talked about like the inclusive, I recall there being some consensus on more of like an all ages, family, seniors, youth type of a focus.
That's a good point. If there's concurrence, we can work toward that as well.
Yeah.
Because some of it, maybe we're establishing something, right? Like we've haven't done the HOA fair, for instance, yet, but that may be something that we want to do annually. So maybe we'll work on,
A lot of this
Including
will be operationalizing into your standard business.
yeah, it's just that we're starting a lot of this for the first time.
Yeah, that's it. When you look at the projects, some of those are for the first time.
Yeah.
And we may discover that, yes, that belongs over there in the annual routine. I recall on completed ones, there were some that we moved projects to annual and routine. So we do the work on a project. It has to be something we decide to be annual and routine.
Mhm.
But gotta do the work on the project first.
Okay, so we can take a stab at making this, doing that, and then if council has changes at the council meeting, when you adopt this by resolution, we can make any necessary tweaks. Is that acceptable?
Yeah.
I think just adding on to that point too, there will probably be items, for instance, in the communications plan that will fit within that last objective as well, especially as far as inclusivity and that kind of thing go.
And as we're going in, I'm talking about what we've done to the community, let's also include Click It, Fix It.
Yes.
What was that, Jenny? I couldn't hear you.
As
The
we're
see,
talking
click,
about to
fix.
the community, what we've done and how we're responding to their needs, let's include our measurement on Click It, Fix It.
Did we answer Councilmember Seth? Seth's question or comment?
Oh, yeah, I saw nodding heads for
Yeah.
consensus on what he said. So yeah, we'll work on getting that in there.
Make
Make
sure
his
we
hands
have-
back up.
Councilor Storsett, did you want to add anything else?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, it was kind of back when we first started on this, but Lee and Mary had, some different views on how it's structured. I think this is good for, I feel like it was a bit of a brainstorming session. We pulled it together, but I would like to see something that's a little bit more prioritized and as we go forward, because there's a lot on here and we have to think, you know, of what are we taking on first? What are we going to be able to accomplish in this time? And what are we okay with if it slips off? Because right now we're all, one of us or majority of us are all passionate about all of them, but we may have to be more realistic. So looking for the staff to give us some guidance on that too.
Sounds
Sure.
like ranked choice voting in your future.
Well, right, time bound measurable objectives.
Right.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I think that's just.
That's a
part of-
good- it's a
to
good
Go to
point.
Mary's comment, that's part of the strategic plans.
Mhm.
And some of this will be handled hopefully in bonds as well.
Yeah, could be.
When you have funding, it definitely lifts it up.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The priority list. Okay, well, we really appreciate council's time on this and we'll get this adjusted with all the comments that we received today and bring it back for resolution at council meeting soon.
Okay, thank you very much, Katrina. Would you all like to take a 5-minute break? Or keep going? Keep going? Okay. All right. So we'll go right on to review utility payment program financial support options. And this is, this report will be from our public works director, Jeff Leno.
Thank you, Mayor.
How many do we have left standing right now? We were at 247 or something last time we talked. What do we-
Yeah, I think it's down about 150. I can find that number out. in
Okay,
email.
perfect, thank
Let me
you.
write that down for utilize help.
And how many of those are commercial, how many of those?
Yeah,
Oh, my God.
I think it was very few commercial, if I remember right.
Correct.
We didn't have the exactly.
Try and get those tomorrow. I am on vacation next week, so I'm not able to get those tomorrow, but.
I think we're going to.
Vacation.
I did gladly.
We're
Jeff
very
needs some
happy
time
he's
off.
going on vacation. Not
Uh,
that we won't miss you because we
yeah.
always do.
So we prepared, I've had some discussions with Fish Food Bank. After we had our discussions, a study session related to the utility payment program back in January. Fish Food Bank was open arms to talk about this and look at options. So I said, do you have any options? Do you have some idea? And they said, we just want to be there to support you in whatever you do. So they said, you tell us what you want and give us some options and we'll review those. So that's what I did. I gave them some options. They were able to provide us with some comments back. What you have in your memo and the attachment to the memo with those three options, as a result of those conversations with the Fish Food Bank. So I'm actually gonna bring those up on my screen. We can take a look at those. Okay, so it's there listed in draft, but that's the three options that we're talking about. We have been wanting to, well, we back up, Fish Food Bank looked at these options and they said, yeah, they want to be very careful about option one. I tweaked option one from the original proposal a little bit. They want to be careful that they weren't getting into our business of them knowing who is in a payment program. And I said, fair enough, we will modify that. And so they were a little hesitant about option one, because then they would know who we were working with in payment programs, which they said really was none of their business. So, but option one is there. I've modified it a little bit, but option one is still there. Because that would outright have them working to only focus on those people who are within the program and to provide funding that is city funds to be able to help those customers who cannot afford their utility payments. Water and sewer is what I'm talking about here. And so I've thrown some details here of how that could work. And these details, I don't want to go through them. You guys can read them. You've read them, I'm sure, but it has the options of a time frame. I mean, our program only allows up to 20 months, so that's why you can see at the very last bullet, we have a time frame. At the end of that 20-month period, starting June 2023, this program would cease to exist and would go away. Councilmember, you had your hand about sure, do you want to talk about this option?
No, I'm sorry.
And so, well, that's an option. I'm gonna come back to all of these here when we get to the end. I'm gonna move on to option 2. Similar only to option 1, only this is an ongoing program that's for anybody who needs requested breathing. Again, it's for city water sewer customers only. We intentionally did not include stormwater in here. Because stormwater fees are paid by the property owner, not by renters. And so we understand that tenants are often the ones who might be under the tightest financial burdens. And if you have a property, then the stormwater fees, relatively also speaking, are very low compared to water and sewer bills. So we just narrowed it down to water and sewer. But that would be an ongoing process where the city would assign funds and provide funds to Fish to be able to support customers in an ongoing basis. And then option 3, if you had a chance to look at Penn Bites Project Help, it would be the city initiating its own program whereby city customers can donate money. Now, how you can donate money, that's left to be decided. But there's a lot of ways that some utilities do that, round up or flat out donation or both or other options. So, but with option 3, we just don't have the staff in Public Works to manage that through utility billing. And so I threw out there a couple of options, either health, housing and human services director, with support from utility billing and finance, but that would probably still require additional, at least partial FTE to help manage the program, if not a full FTE, or just go out to a third-party vendor who might deal with that. So we threw out some options. Ideally, we would like to be able to implement this before the water notices go off, because that's how we are having to manage these when there is lack of payment through the program that would turn off water. So what I'm looking for today is just some general guidance of which option there might be interest in. If there's another option out there we can talk about, and then go from there. So Councilmember Martin.
So Jeff, thank you for putting all this together. How are we as a city able to pay for this without having to be able to get to public funds? Are we not under that? I mean, I'm all for supporting people, don't get me wrong, I just was curious.
The gift of public funds, there's an out to that, and it says in the Constitution, except for necessary support of the poor or infirm.
Okay,
So we can assist the sick and
Great,
poor,
thank
but
you.
not.
I appreciate that, thank you.
So on option number 2, you say agreement timeline start with 2 years. Are you considering having it be a longer period of time?
Well, we could, again, option 1 that had a set time frame because we're talking about only the program, the customers that were in our payment program. Option 2, we want to be able to set a time frame for this agreement, and I'm saying start with 2 years and then revisit the program after a couple of years and see how it's going, see some data on what we're seeing, what kind of payments we're making, and if there's a need that's increased or decreased or what have you. So I'm just throwing a time frame.
So am I hearing that it sounds to me that you're in favor of option 2?
I mean, that's the least impactful, it's the cleanest in my opinion. Because like I said, option 1 Fish was something that they were hesitant to get involved with. And I understand why. And option 3 just creates a whole additional level of work that somebody would have to manage. So,
Right.
yeah. Councilor.
So options 1 and 2 require kind of direct city funding to Bishop Bank. Do we have any idea, even concept of how much that might be?
Well, option one, yes, we would, because we would know if everybody in the payment program was to participate, we would know what that scope would be. But option two, we don't have a great number. I have not asked Fish Food Bank for their data of how many people they support now. Now, granted, they support utility payments from everybody across the peninsulas. And of course, we only would be providing, or in this agreement, providing payment for those that are city utility customers.
So wouldn't we know the same though, or is it the same group in one, that would be in two, it's just how it's set up?
No, the group in one would only be those that are participating in our utility payment
Currently.
program.
So if somebody wasn't in it, but they're still struggling.
That would be, it's standard, that would continue to follow how Fish Food Bank provides funding, is independent of the city.
So would there be any way in option two, I guess the option three, you said the management, that would be if people wanted to donate money via their bill. That's what bothers you, is because there's no management on the city side.
Right, and it's just I just would want to make it very clear that somebody would have to manage that.
Yeah.
I don't see us, Public Works managing
And if you got a third party vendor, you'd have to pay him and.
a portion, yes. Yeah.
So this program is only for people, I mean, I just want clarification. It's for people that fill arrears in their payment due to COVID.
Well, only the option one is, and it's only those who.
So it's a limited time program at 2 years. And boy, that's a long time for somebody to pay back a past due bill. Are they, what's the biggest past due bill? Is it $200?
There's a couple thousand.
Oh,
And so,
yes.
and so, yeah, that's what I can bring up
No, you don't
that.
need-
But it would be, if you have a couple thousand, we were giving them up to 20 months.
Wow.
And the issue there is, the concern is that they have to pay their current utility bill and they have to pay this additional bill. And their current utility bill is fairly large, but every other month, and this payment program is every month. So there's on the month, they have to pay their current bill and the additional bill. So we recognize that could be quite a burden.
Yeah. And so how do you handle that?
Well, right now, we're just, it's standard protocol. We have a process to shut off water for non-payment.
So would option two handle that better?
Well, that option two would handle it for anybody, regardless of who's, you don't have to be in the payment program if you're following within option two. Yeah, mutually exclusive.
Right.
In option one, Jeff, is the differentiation of primary one between one and two is that option one is specifically, the money would be for COVID-19 related expended or late payments, and option two would kind of open it up to anybody who is
Anyone
struggling
struggling.
for any reason not subject to COVID-19.
Yes, it'd be any city. Option two is any city water or sewer utility customer. Option one is those who are already enrolled in the COVID-19 payment program.
The Fish Food Bank already helps people.
They do.
So, and they have a lot of money. So in option two, we're gonna give them more money to help everybody. That's very nice of us, but I think it should be, in my opinion, people that are in the program.
If Fish doesn't want to deal with it, they know they're in trouble.
We would just have to work with Fish to iron out a few details so that they wouldn't be. That they didn't want to have to be receiving a list to know who is in a payment program and who's not.
They put all kinds of options out there. At first, they don't see the problem.
If council desires to go with option one for those reasons, we can go back and work with them and see if we can work something out.
Did you make contact?
Why wouldn't we go with option two that allows us through Fish to help somebody who can't pay their bill, period? Why do we have to have COVID as the reason to do that? It's the reason we started looking at it, but is it the reason that we want to do this good deed for more years? I'm just asking.
In option two, we'd also have to vet the person and make sure that they, the Fish Food Bank has the vetting process.
Yeah,
Until they see who's in truly in need.
and that's why I'm intrigued with fish because they're already doing that.
Yeah, and. You can see, I believe some both option 1 and 2. Yeah, I put a bullet in there, fish would process approved client requests of city utility customers in accordance with fish guidelines and policies, so they would be the ones vetting based on their existing policy.
How would we know though that the folks who got in arrears due to COVID are being helped?
Well, on option 1, we would give them a list and let Fish Food Bank know who is in arrears. And that's what Fish Food Bank said, we don't really are not that interested in finding out who's in arrears. That's where they wanted to draw the line.
But if we go to option 2, then is it possible that some folks who are in arrears would not be involved, would not get money from it? Would
But
not
we
get,
couldn't we suggest to the people who are in arrears that they go to fish to get assistance?
Yes,
City assistant.
yes.
Well, and that's what it says on option 2. They would go to Fish and then Fish would provide us with an invoice to reimburse the people.
Notify those folks in arrears that city support is available via Fish, so they would go there just like someone from another city, so they can't pay my bill. But not necessarily giving Fish a list of people that are in arrears on our program.
Right, and then they would do the vetting because the person came straight to them.
This is hard for me to understand that they don't want to know who's in arrears, all they're gonna get is a name. And they've got 1,000 clients that are in need. And it's just, confidential. And so, I mean, I don't see it.
so if somebody doesn't go to Fish, we go with option 2, and somebody doesn't go to Fish, then it's just gonna be on that person to continue to let their bill get higher and higher, or to pay it off, which is not, I thought what we were trying to do, we were trying to help those people who were in arrears pay their bill down.
But they would be notified.
They would be notified, but if they don't go there,
But that's their choice sometimes.
well, it is their choice, but weren't we trying to help them?
Well, we are helping.
We are helping them.
Yeah, we would be helping because the city would still be providing that financial support. It just Fish would be the operating agency taking care of monitoring all of that.
And I would think that we'd also be helping inadvertently helping them in other ways than paying their utility bills. Because if they're having trouble paying their utility bills, it's more than likely they're also having trouble feeding themselves and their family and other things. And if they go to Fish, they can get that support and assistance.
I'm hearing a lot of opinions leaning towards option 1 or option 2. As Katrina said, I don't mind just narrowing it down to those 2 options, having a next discussion with Fish about option 1 and seeing if they're more willing to, and then coming back, because option 3, if there was preference to go to option 3, that's the one that's going to take some time to get a program.
A lot
in
of
place. And I'm
time.
not hearing
Yeah.
general consensus.
Yeah.
Looking at Councilor Roberts.
Might be something we want to look at long term.
Maybe when the H3 person comes on
Yeah,
board, it can be a long-term goal, maybe
That's
that we have a program like that. And then that would be in that department, but right now there's only funding and only authorization
Yeah.
for that one position, and that one position can't do that.
Right.
So it would be
Along with everything else.
along with everything else,
Right.
that person's gonna immediately have a very full job description that has nothing to do with
That's right.
utility repayment.
The long run.
It's a longer
Say that.
term goal, yeah.
And Fish pays the bill itself, they reimburse the city. As we're
They
talking
would-
about this process.
Yeah.
They would then in turn pay us, not giving the funds to the individual, right?
Yeah.
Jeff, who are you speaking to there the most?
Well, maybe that might be an offline conversation.
Okay,
There's a group. There's a group I'm talking
I'd
about.
like to have a conversation.
Councilmember Dorset?
Yes, thank you. I'm somewhere between option 1 and option 2. I guess I'm a little unclear on what Fish's guidelines and policies are, and that's what kind of leaves me in this little bit of limbo. I don't, especially with the bills coming back to the city, I would want to know what we could expect to be paying out. So rather than just, giving them the money up forward, and we have to have a better, I guess, a ballpark of what we anticipate this to be. Which leans me a little bit more towards, maybe it's a hybrid between 1 and 2 of reimbursing, but I think we need to have some type of a limit. Right now, I have no idea what it would be. Is it high? Is it low? Either way, it's something we know we can use with the COVID funds. But I think we could look at, test this out for a period of time. As some people I think will become more financially stable too, hopefully in time. I'm sure that's the goal. So yeah, I guess I feel like I need to learn more at this point.
And is it possible to go for more than 20 months with option 1?
With the utility COVID-19 program payment program ends in 20 months.
Mhm.
So it would
Okay.
automatically go away. Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll get a good idea after that amount of time, whether it's something we might have to, not have to, but we might want to have some sort of permanent hybrid program to help the ones in need at that time.
Okay, what I'm gonna do then is what I'm hearing is I'll return back to Fish, have some conversations about option 1 and option 2. And specifically their concerns with option 1. But I'll also find out, Councilor Starr said, more specifically what their guidelines and policies are, because I didn't inquire into exactly what their criteria is, how they decide who gets support, financial support from them, and who doesn't.
All right. Thanks, Jeff, for coming back to my question. I know we quickly jumped onto another, so appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah, and maybe even some data as well in terms of dollar figure ballparks, we can let you know as well.
Also support the
Mhm.
different family guidelines for food.
Yes,
If you come in and you can prove where you live and meet certain zip codes, you get approved, like they interview them. But you get approved, they don't turn anybody.
okay, so are you all comfortable with Jeff going back to them and
Yes.
gathering more information, then we'll come back to you with this? Okay,
I anticipate I'll come back, put on a study session agenda item, and then work with city attorney to get an agreement between Fish and the city, so we can, if we do move forward, then we'll have an agreement in place and identify clearly who does what, how money's gonna exchange hands.
and Dave, any questions from you? Or are you good with,
I've already worked through what Jeff has, and
perfect? Great,
I'm right in line with everything I heard.
okay. All right, thank you, council. Thank you, Jeff. So we'll move on to the active CIP schedule update, which is,
Mayor,
oh, yeah,
may I suggest that because we absolutely have to get number 5 done today?
oh, sure, yeah,
Not that Jeff's not important with the update, but if we could go through that really
yeah,
quickly,
that's
just
fine.
because we need an answer from council today in order to submit this grant, if you agree.
Yes, yes.
If we go forward with it, yeah.
Okay, so item 5,
Sorry.
no, DNR Community Forestry
Thank you, Jeff.
Assistance Grant, Urban Tree Inventory. And this report will come from, it says Community Development Director DeSimis, but I
Yeah.
see Roxy is also, we're gonna promote you to panelist here.
I'm gonna give the report though, Mayor.
Are you?
Roxy- Yeah,
Oh,
Roxy's
good, okay.
listening in just in case.
Oh, okay.
We need any help from
Great.
her expertise, but
Turn it over to you then.
thank you, Mayor. As council is aware, we've been working on urban forest management program over the last 6 months or so, and we're getting very near completion. So we've got real close to bringing the draft of the actual program forward. There's been a lot of work put into it, and I think you're going to be very happy with the with what is brought forward. In the meantime, we've been made aware of an opportunity to go back to DNR, and they're using the same grant program that we utilized already for the urban forest management program, to kind of go into the second stage, if you will, of the urban forest management program, and that would be a full inventory of all of our public trees. That would be part of it. The other part of it would be look at our preferred species list that we currently use in community development and in public works for street trees. Right now, our list utilizes or recommends a lot of trees that are more so what I'm looking for there. Their heat and pests can affect the trees that we have on the list currently more so than what we should probably be using on this list. I'm sorry, I didn't come up with the word I needed there. So they're more vulnerable. So we have had this opportunity to get into this grant program. What I didn't realize when we started looking into it is that it was, again, a matching grant. So we would have to put forward some funds. This is not budgeted. The amount that we would have to contribute would be half of the total program. Part of that can be done through labor, which is already budgeted for, so it's around just shy of $10,000. And then the rest we would have to find within our budget, and we would need to move that money around when we get to our biennial budget amendment in November.
So that's just for the paper two.
That would be for the second phase of the forest management program.
And that's something we want to do anyway.
Well, it's something that we had hoped that we would do at some point down the road. We weren't sure when it would come up and when we would actually take on the second
Now we have
phase.
an opportunity to get it paid for.
And we kind of have a good rapport right now with DNR. We have a consultant, that's already doing good work for us. So it seems like now would be a good time to just keep the train rolling forward on it.
And this is the 15,144.
That would be the actual cash that we would have to contribute. The overall budget for the project, which we would have to budget for the overall budget, which would be $48,910.86, but we would get reimbursed half of that through this grant from DNR.
And 10,000 of that is labor.
Correct.
So the only additional money would be 15,000.
15,000 is really what the city's investment would be in this. That's unbudgeted investment, I should say.
So is any of the forest management plan? This is literally gonna be saying, the Granby Forest behind us saying we have 20 dead firs and one maple tree. And
Each tree individually, and each tree would be, and stumps even, and they would be entered into this tree keeper software. That with this grant, we would get access to well, not free, but with the money that we're spending, if we went with Davy, we would get access to that for a year. See if we like the program, and if we like it, then we can continue on that program with this on a subscription base. Otherwise, they would give us all the data that they have at that time. We could enter it into our own GIS system and try and maintain it ourselves. And we would have to make a decision to be a decision point.
But this is a recommended action from the urban forestry plan, would
It
be to
is.
do this.
Yeah, so we would want to do this eventually, no matter what.
And only public lands and public roads.
So that's correct. As far as the inventory goes, it would only be on all of our right of ways and all of our public spaces, parks. And then the recommendations for the different tree species would be relative to both our public properties, right of ways, and on private properties.
So what's the conservation area?
Those may be included in it. We'll have to look at what the total scope ends
So
up
we
being.
count every single tree.
Each tree individually, yeah.
Councilor Henderson?
So I remember in the Davy original contract, they were doing a tree survey, but it was a higher level, you either aerial photos, things like that. So this is a more
Tree
robust,
canopy.
right, this is a more robust assessment of our trees. And in this particular scope we're talking about right now, the locations of areas available for planting is not part of it, because that was in the original.
So the other, yes, correct.
And then timeline, if we get the grant, do we know what the timeline of the grant is? Because
For this
we
particular.
have some opportunities coming up pretty quickly to, let's say, replant some of the trees that were taken, for instance, the phase 1B project. We're felling a lot of trees there. We're gonna put some back as far as landscaping, but there's a lot that aren't coming back, and those should be replanted. It'd just be nice to know if we can get out of the areas and whatnot ahead of time, so we don't say, well, we won't have any information for 2 more years.
We
Oh,
do
well-
have a tree analysis through the permit process,
Yeah.
and so we do know that information. And planting of trees would not, this would not preclude us from
Okay,
what Public Works is intending to do with the
Okay,
tree
good.
planting
all right,
currently.
that's good. So this wouldn't hold up any of that.
It would not, no. And I see, Roxy, do you have your hand? Is that you?
It's Councilmember Storsett.
Oh, I'm sorry,
No worries.
Mr. Sal.
Councilmember Storsett, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Carl, appreciate it. There's one thing that I feel like I'm reading on here differently than what you just explained.
Mhm.
So it says, it's like midway through the larger paragraph, but it says required replanting on private property. So that's, you said just guidance, or will there be requirements that it fits the criteria of these trees that we select, that are selected during this process?
Thank you, Councilmember Smith, that I can explain that. So right now, we have a director's preferred planting list that we utilize when we require replanting on private property. So for large developments, if they are taking down, if they need to take down some trees in their buffer, for instance, on maybe a large plat or a commercial site, because of grading is interfering with the buffer's interfering with what they need to grade. The trees that they would replant would be taken from that preferred species list, or at least 80% of the trees need to come from that list. So that list would only applies to private property, and that's what that is meant to be.
Okay, so just as a scenario, then if, say, someone had a hazardous tree, maybe it's a tree that's even been infected and dies, would they be required to replant a tree from this list, or would they be able to replant a similar tree or one of their choosing?
We generally ask them to, it depends on where the tree is. If the tree is in a vegetated buffer that was meant to be retained with natural vegetation, then we would require them to choose trees from the director's preferred species list. Yes.
Okay, so if it's on a buffer, like a property line type of an area, but not, say, if it's, say they have a large plat. I'm just thinking of like basic landscaping and.
That's correct. It would not apply to somebody who just wants to take down a big tree in their front yard, for instance.
Okay.
It would not apply. It would not apply to those folks. We wouldn't require them to replant that tree under our current ordinance anyway.
All right, thank you.
So today, I'm just looking for concurrence from council that we should move forward with this grant application. And then we would come back to council with a professional services contract to actually get under contract, and that's when the actual appropriation would be made.
That's important.
Do we have money, Mr. Budget, over there?
We can squeeze the, we could probably most likely go without a budget amendment. I would lay myself out like that, but we're starting to tabulate this list of projects at the mid review, and we don't go so far with that. And so we're gonna put that on our list, and then we'll consider that when we come back to you in November with that list.
Okay, so we got 49,000.
Well, we're not gonna need 49, we just are gonna need 15, because we're gonna get grant funding back.
Okay,
Yeah.
but do we have to outlay it first?
Oh, we have to budget for the entire expenditure, and we have to outlay it first, and we get reimbursed.
Right, right.
We will have that, yes.
Okay.
And
Actual expenses.
within the community development budget, there's currently 2 positions that are vacant and 1 that has been, or maybe 3. Anyway, and there's other, for supplies, professional services, all of those other things that we believe that there's adequate funding within the existing departmental budget to cover this.
So it takes 3 months to hire somebody. We have 3 months for your salary. If you're doing 5 days program.
Correct.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So as long as we continue to have revenue coming in, what if we put that?
And right now, you're gonna see the weekly thing, but sales taxes right now, first quarter. We're right where we budgeted to be. We're about flat. And remember, we budgeted no increase for this year. We're 0.5% over last year.
Okay, so it looks like there's definitely general consensus. I saw nodding heads on the screen as well. So yeah, you're good to go.
All right. Thank you very much, council. Really appreciate it.
You're
We'll
welcome.
move forward.
You're welcome. Great. All right, then we will go on to the last item, which is our active CIP schedule update.
Okay, first I want to just Quick announcement, this is probably the last time you're gonna look at this document. Mike Simmons and I have been coordinating on getting a story map together through GIS to show this information. It's not, we have not been able to, let's take as long as I was trying to still be able to fit project schedules into that. But that's not going to happen using the story map without doing all sorts of additional work. So what we're proposing to do right now is Public Works Engineering is going to be moving forward at our next public outreach update in April with finalizing the draft story map that Mike and I have been working on. And we will we'll put together something for the council to see at our next active CIP update. If we're going to propose there, take a look at it. We may make that story map live and available to the general public through our website, so people can click on it and see it. There will be a staff version and a public version, because we don't necessarily need to put all the details out there of who's doing exactly which roles that the staff would like to know, but probably might nobody know. So anyway, just be ready for that. But what I might not be able to have it in time for the distribution to council when Josh distributes all of the information to council for the study sessions, so the Thursday or Friday before. So there might just be a memo that says we're going to have this to you, and but if we're able to do it, well, here's the thing: you guys don't have a link with an Esri account, signature sign it. So I probably won't be able to. If I do, it'll be a PDF. It might look kind of odd, but we'll figure that out. Just appreciate your patience and trying to do it next time without
Sounds good, though.
information.
Sounds really good. And like I said, it's a little bit more visual.
Oh, it's very visual. It's gonna be very visual. It's
Easier to
gonna have a
understand
map
it.
on one side and then pictures and summaries on the other. So it's a little more work on our end in terms of trying to get staff up to speed on how to put all that information into Esri, because you have to go into the story map itself, but that's still.
Sounds good.
Okay, so I'm gonna share this real quick, and I know we don't have a whole lot of time, but go through this. I'll show up on this. Yeah, is that probably a little bigger? All right, so Scansy Net Shed. We are moving forward. We've received a set of plans from the consultants for the structural revisions based on what we talked about at the beginning of the year. And they're not the final plans. It's taking longer than we thought to get the final plans. But we have a preliminary set. I need to look at those. I'm going to look at those as soon as I get back from vacation, and then we're going to hopefully by then get the final set right after that. And assuming there's not any structural changes we need to make to the foundation, the pilings of the net shed, we're gonna move that forward to the design review board and or at least get it on the schedule for the design review board. Because that's a whole separate process. So anyway, we're making progress. It just continues to be slower than we'd like.
Why is that?
Why is it slower?
Is it the consultant? Is it the?
It's in this case, in this instance, it's the consultant just took a lot longer than we thought. I can't remember when we approved their contract amendment. I want to say it was January. It just took a lot longer than we thought to get that design back. They didn't think it would take that long. Just keep asking for it, but it's taken them a lot longer to get that design back to us.
So the next shed will be closed all summer.
No, it's not closed right now.
No, but I mean, starting in July.
Yeah, during construction, yes. But we're gonna work with the Scansy Net Shed Foundation to make sure that, I mean, they're not open like Harbor Wild Watch is.
But I just think the park is gonna affect the park at all, or?
There will be some minor impacts. We're gonna be working with contractor to have an area that they can stage materials and equipment. But I hope it won't have, well, we're gonna try and schedule as best we can to minimize that impact to general park users and to the Scansy Net Shed Foundation.
So should put some more signs on it.
Yeah, summer sounds and all that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's gonna be.
Yeah.
Is it, would we not want to do this like in the fall? when the park is less used?
Well, yes, we can. It's just we need to be able to identify as we get closer to bidding, how long we're going to give the contractor. Because, I mean, of course, you can imagine one of the last things they're gonna do is they're gonna do painting. And we are gonna do painting in December.
Okay.
No.
Oh, that's good,
Yeah.
that's good.
So,
All right, thank you.
and again, as we get closer to that, maybe there's always things that we can do to, if we get later in the year, we can do a lot of the structural and the re-roofing and come back and just suspend a contract and have a contract come back next spring and paint the building. I mean, those are the kinds of things we can talk about depending on the timeline where we go. Sports complex phase 1B, that's moving along well. We're moving forward on 3 different fronts. We're moving the design forward with our consultant. We've got the land use permits in process. Those are moving forward. And we're working with the YMCA on the binding site plan amendment and the binding site plan and the impacts to the YMCA's current site. If you recall, as part of phase 1B, we have to modify their parking lot. We have to have access on their entrance. We're going through those discussions with the YMCA to try and formalize those now. We've always been talking about it, but we don't have anything in place. We don't have agreements in place yet. It's just part of the lease, part of the discussions. We'll get that formalized. Crescent Creek Park Master Plan. The CAC Citizen Advisory Committee, that they had one meeting already. It's kicking off this planning. We're going to be coming to City Council, I think the next study session and talking about the Masonic Lodge structural analysis. We have reports back now on lead, asbestos, and some preliminary engineering and preliminary architectural analysis. What we're waiting for now is we're waiting for cost estimates just to be able to make the building structurally sound, meaning it meets current standards and ADA accessible. And so we're just getting those cost estimates and come back.
There was a neighborhood group that did some of their own outreach and had a meeting this last Saturday at some Creek Park. Is that something that city sanctioning or is that just a grassroots program? They're tossed around ideas and will come to us.
Yeah, that's a grassroots program or group. They're trying to work directly with our consultants and we are trying to make sure that they work through us.
Yeah.
So, but Jennifer's working on that.
Yeah.
But we are preparing to tentatively hold an open house in our lobby here on April 19th for the general public to come in. And that grassroots group is able to come in and have, that'll be published soon when we finalize that. And then we'll have more information for the general public.
Will you have a plan then?
No, we won't have a plan. It'll be basically just opening the door and saying, hey, here's what we're doing. Here's what we've got the Citizens Advisory Committee. We're gonna be having these conversations with council. We're gonna give the public general opportunity to provide comment. And it'll be a similar discussion that happened with the Citizens Advisory Committee, only less focused. I mean, we're not gonna be at Citizens Advisory Committee. We're asking them to provide us feedback in certain timeframes, and that's not gonna be how we're gonna structure this with the general public.
Is there a website for the Crescent Creek project or will there be one?
We talked about that. I thought there was. Let me find out about that. Yeah, good question. Okay. Sports complex, phase 2 and 3. We're just finalizing that scope and fee with the consultant. We hope to have that professional services contract council at the April 24th council meeting. So it would be able to move forward with feasibility study for phases 2. We're Fishing Homeport design that is proceeding fairly well. We are just trying to finalize the permits through the U.S. Army Corps still, the mitigation through National Marine Fisheries. It is possible, Mayor, that we'll have a list of bulleted items for you and a request for you if you could have time to reach out to the U.S. Army Corps.
Yes, someone asked me about that today. I can't remember who it was, but it was at the chili cook-off. They said, be expecting this to come. And I said, okay, no problem. Stephanie. 70, yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, just make sure you talk.
Oh, I got my guy.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll make sure we have talking points.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah. We had a good conversation with Peninsula Light Company yesterday. We originally had thought we were gonna have to put a lot more infrastructure for Peninsula Light to get power, three-phase power down to the facility. They found a solution whereby they're gonna take what is currently up at the driveway, a single transformer, and make it a three-phase transformer up there instead of having to do all that work down on the ground on our site. So appreciate
Great.
those conversations with Peninsula Light Company. They came up with a good solution.
Save a lot of money.
Saves a lot of money.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That was huge. Yeah.
Great.
It's only a 50 amp instead of 30.
Okay, so I'm moving forward to Public Works Operations Center. As you know, we were that.
Jeff, could you scroll along?
Oh,
the-
I'm sorry. Thank you.
I can do that if
I'm
you.
flipping my own page. Okay, Public Works Operations Center. We awarded that contract. Contract has now been executed. We had 14 days to do that. We worked with the contractor and Josh and Mayor. And we had that contract executed today. So that's all said and done. Yep. And then we just need to get the meeting, pre-construction meeting scheduled and yeah, everybody's excited.
Someone's gonna start taking pictures during the construction, so we can kind of see it go along.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
It was mentioned at Chili Cook-Off today to me, this is the last time we're gonna have a big event like this in our shop.
All those guys are pretty excited.
I got lots of pictures of the old building and
Okay.
everyone in it, so
Everyone- This is the way we used to.
this is what it used to be.
Civic Center upgrade for the HVAC system. We had a kickoff meeting for the investment grade audit with McDonald Miller and State Department of Enterprise Services today. So they hope to be able to come back to us by summer with a full list of how much they think it's gonna cost to do what we've asked. That will be actual contract prices, and they're gonna throw in a few other items that if it fits in our budget that they want to be able to do, like looking at solar panels, looking at full conversion of LED lighting in here, and removing our natural gas fired hot water tanks and putting heat pump water tanks. I don't know if you've heard of heat pump water tanks, but so anyway, those will be more discussions to come, but moving forward. Both Visitor Center rehabilitation. We are working with the contractor on getting some of the lead items, having meetings with the chamber. Chamber's been included in those. So it's progressing. Not much else to say on that. Building access and control, that's our proximity cards for here at City Hall. Jeff Olson's been working with the vendor. They will be hopefully on site soon this spring and starting to implement, remove our swipe cards and replace all of that with proximity cards. So moving forward quickly with that, or finally with that. EV charging stations. We're finalizing the design with our consultant. They provided us a quick sketch of where some of the transformers might go to minimize the line size of the conductors, the wires. I have asked our planning division if at the installation of the vault and EV charging stations will require land use. We know they're SEPA exempt because that's due, I believe they're SEPA exempt because that's due level 2 chargers, level 3 chargers are different animal. So I'm just getting some clarification on the local land use permits, not just the SEPA. So anyway.
We hope to get a favorable response from our planning commission. Very good.
We're having some good discussions.
There,
So, assuming that happens quickly.
Yeah.
Quickly,
got it.
how does the finish construction of June 26 link up with the delivery of his EV and your EV?
Good question.
You don't know.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any delivery dates from the EVs yet?
No,
Okay.
I asked Jeff about that.
Yeah, we were supposed to have had one on the leaf, but it fell through. I don't know. They had one available for us. We said,
Yeah,
we'll
that's
take
what I
it.
thought.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think it fell through. So, I don't know. You haven't heard anything from.
When I talked to Jeff Olson 2 days ago, he said that he was gonna ask Jeff Bain to follow up on that because they were asking the same question about a week ago.
Yeah. Because they said 2 weeks
Snow.
when we
Yeah.
we ordered it.
I remember.
It sounded like previously it was sitting on the ground somewhere.
Yeah.
Just
yeah,
needed somebody
nearby.
to pick it up and we don't know what
I
happened.
guess worst case, you can charge them at night if the tides are the.
Right.
Well, we have, I mean, we've been talking with the supplier about how to charge it, and they said you could, for how little it gets used and how long it will sit there in the parking lot, you can literally take the city court out.
Yeah.
Yeah, triple charging.
Yeah, it is, but they said,
Yeah,
look, is it gonna sit there for 12 hours? We said, yes, well, then that's,
It would be good to find out what happened.
yeah,
Yeah.
Jeff Baines,
Following up.
Jeff Olson.
I know on some of the police cars, our cars were damaged en route.
Well, yeah. that's-
And so,
that's good.
you know, but it shouldn't happen all the time. So we'll find out.
Thanks.
Okay. Burnham Drive, phase 1. Or. I get that wrong, it's not phase 1. Anyway, phase 1A, street improvements. We anticipate SEPA being issued very soon on this. We are waiting for 2 things. One is the U.S. Army Corps permit issuance. The only thing outstanding on that was our cultural resources plan. We have submitted that to U.S. Army Corps, so hopefully they can review that, finalize it, and give us an issuance. And then we're also waiting for resolution on the city's request of a temporary construction easement on an adjacent property. That adjacent property owner continues to not accept our need for this project. They say you don't need it. There's no salmon going up here. There's no stream.
Of course, there's no salmon going up there. They can't get up there.
So that it's a challenging conversation, and we had a meeting with them, with that person today. But we're working on an appraisal, so we can get an appraisal and hopefully pay for a temporary construction, which we don't usually do, but we're doing this. Harbor History Museum driveway revisions, that design is moving right along. We will hopefully have that built this summer. Mid-block crosswalk at 50th Street. Our crews are planning on having that installed this fall. That's this says September 1st. I think it'll be a little later than that, but right around. Watchet Drive on ramps and off ramp projects. We have extended those out a little bit. We have consultant contracts now, either have been approved or about ready to be approved, depending on which project, and those are moving along. We hope to have some conceptual designs later this year, and then we can make some decisions based on those conceptual designs.
Is that 1.68 million that the Senate approved, is that not for that kind of a thing, but it's more of the what is that work on overlay?
My understanding is it's for these 2 projects specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not a done thing yet, right?
Not yet.
So
Josh and Annika are coming up with a strategy for us to ensure that it through the House and the governor that
That it stays.
that it stays there. And so we'll share that strategy once we have that.
I was gonna send a letter to both the representatives, but it's like, they've been on this for years.
Yeah, they're both very supportive, although,
Yeah.
you know, within the email, if you do send an email to Senator Randall, she really
I actually sent one for you.
Good.
believe it or not.
went to bat for us.
Yeah, she did. Yeah.
But she was one that cost us the money last time. It was at this stage before, for those who don't know. It was at this stage before we had money. And next thing you know, Senator Randall moved that money to Bremerton for trails. So I think she helped us out.
It was bike lanes on the Warren Avenue Bridge, but we're very happy that it's going forward the way that it's going now. And so we're gonna fight really hard to keep this in the budget through the House and through the governor's signature. So yes, very, very glad to get that news this week.
Prentice Fenimore, so we are proceeding with design. One of the things that came up during design is there's a retaining wall on the curve at the north end of the site. That retaining wall, new design may possibly impact some of those trees that are down in the gully below it, so. An arborist is going to go out and take a look at those just to see if that wall and the foundation of the wall will truly impact those trees in a bad way. So that's where we are. We're just proceeding with that, and that's the latest. Okay, 38th Avenue. Unfortunately, as we proceed in design, we have found that when we discussed at our December 15th study session, we found that there were, get the exact number, but there were 20 some odd trees, I believe, that we were looking at having removed. That number is now up to 37. The arborists have looked at the design plans and they've looked at the trees and how much roots would have to be cut. And they said, well, we're going to now have to take out a few more trees than we originally anticipated. So we're up to 37 trees right now. We don't think we're going to take out any more because we've established exactly where that back of sidewalk will be in construction.
Does that add to the 23 though, that are non-significant? And these are 37 significant plus 23 non-significant.
Yes.
So we're looking at almost 60 trees.
Yeah.
Going down. I mean, whether we say it's significant or not, doesn't matter. People can see how you gone.
Yes. Yep.
Well, put it on our list of trees to replace, the significant ones then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kenwood Water Main Emergency Intertie. We had a good meeting actually today with Washington Water, trying to finalize what that agreement would look like. The plans are just sitting there waiting for the intertie agreement to be signed. There was a good discussion today about who will own what when we're done. Essentially, there's we are paying for all of the construction since it benefits the city's water system. It's a one-way intertie. Washington Water is flowing water to us. We're going to be paying for to bring the water down from where they currently end to a vault where there's a meter and there's the actual valving. From that vault north will go into ownership, operation, and maintenance at the end of this to Washington Water. They're going to operate that. We don't have to operate that. We don't have to pay for that. And then we're going to take over from the vault south. So those kinds of details of things that flow rates and those kind of things is what we're talking about right now. But with those kind of details established, we're going to update the agreement, send it off to attorneys, and then at that point, once attorneys agree, then we're going to bring it to city council for your review. And at that point, we're going to be going out to bid probably right after that, so that we can get that project under construction.
Is that well known?
No, this is just an emergency pipe that connects Washington Water's water system to our water system.
Okay.
And will only serve the hospital.
Right.
Event emergency.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna put well lines on this right yet, but we're gonna put it on there very soon because we just actually had a consultant interviews. We narrowed it down to, we had many consultants who wanted to help us with well number 9, the Harbor North water well. And we had a consultant interviews today. We've narrowed it down to 1, so we're gonna scope and feed for that consultant. We're gonna get that scope and feed in and reviewed, then we're gonna bring it to council. Okay, sports complex water main, that's following along with phase 1B. Oh, there's well line right there. And Soundview Drive water main, that consultant selection has occurred. We're working with Corollo. We hope to have a scope and feed to council. I think it's been moved to the April 24th council. So
And how will that impact Soundview Drive?
we're during construction.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, it's gonna have a big impact on.
I'll be walking around.
It's going to be,
I'm sorry, I have a problem with that.
so, yeah, it's going to be a challenge to get in and around Soundview Drive when we're doing that work, because they're gonna make their way probably uphill, starting downhill and heading south uphill. And they're gonna be cutting the roadway or the sidewalks and putting in 6 pipe 4 feet deep. So, yeah, and then cutting back services, and then we're gonna be repaving.
February through pretty much August. Next year, right?
Next year, yes.
Yeah.
Jeff, would it be helpful, you know, how we have the data Erickson?
Yes, and when we get down to that, there might be a few days in there that we would just work with Spinnaker Ridge to open the gate.
Yeah.
That would. Okay. Moving on.
About 5 minutes, just so everybody's aware.
We're on page 507.
I know, we're doing great. Doing great.
We added a few, that's the green here, I don't know if you remembers or if I said, but the green highlighted ones are new ones that we haven't seen before. Lift station 5, pre-design alternatives analysis, we're getting the consultant on board soon. That is the lift station that is down at the end of Harvard Drive near Harborview Street Park, Ferryland Park, Old Ferryland.
Say that over again, please.
This is the lift station that is down on the waterfront at Harborview Drive at Old Ferry Landing Park, right near there. It's the one.
I just hear the last part.
But it gets pretty, yeah, the wet wells, yeah, right down along the shoreline. We've had a lot more interest from the homeowners in that area than we thought we would. We knew that there would be interest, but they want to provide us direction on what they want to see. So we've broken this design into, that's why you'll see it says pre-design and alternatives analysis, because just like if you were around when we had a discussion with the neighborhood about lift station 6 up at the end of Bryant Street, there was a lot of input on that. And so we had to pause. So we're anticipating that same level of interest now. And so we're going to have this design thing in some stages here, do an alternatives analysis, hear the public's input, talk to council about it, and then move forward with findings.
And where is lift station 5?
It is right at the end of Harborview Drive near the old ferry landing.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Lift station 1 improvements. This is the lift station inside Crescent Creek Park. It's right near the creek itself, near the entrance along Burlington. This one is something where we're trying to figure out that it was originally scoped as part of in the 2018 wastewater comp plan as minor component removal replacement, all completed by city staff. In talking to Chuck, he is going to look into that more. He feels like things have really degraded on that. The lift station 1 has been on the books since we're supposed to do it in 2018. He thinks that it is degraded, like the concrete wet well is degraded. We're not looking for additional capacity necessarily in that wet well, but he's worried that it's going to take more than just some simple component replacement. So we're looking at that. We're going to be prepared when we bring the consultant on, and they'll address that. That's moving forward soon. Wastewater treatment plant digester. That has continued to be held off because we're now waiting for Carollo and their nutrient analysis and report that we're presenting to council. I think it's the April 24th, at a later study session in April, where we're going to be talking about nutrient general permit and process improvements to the treatment plant. The digester upgrades will be impacted by the outcome of those improvements to streamline and minimize nutrients. And then the influent replacement. Yeah, the Chuck's been diverted on other things, so he said that we got the okay, slip lining. We just haven't had the staff to finalize those. We've been distracted with getting other things moving forward. Oh, you know what? I skipped Murphy's Landing. So they're very top. Staff will be coming to council at an upcoming study session to talk about a request from Murphy's Landing that they put together at their March 25th board meeting. It sounds like they're requesting that the city pay for the permit that will allow that through the Army Corps that will allow them to dispose of material in water. We had a discussion with council at the beginning of the year, I think it was in January, where we said, look, we're a nationwide permit, which is up on disposal, or this individual permit, which is much more lengthy and expensive to obtain, but allows you to do in-water disposal. The upland disposal costs that Murphy's Landing was looking at have more than tripled now. So they say, we want to do in-water, we would like the city to do that. So we're gonna look at some things, come to the city council and talk more about what that might look like.
I could have sworn that we approved the in-water, that was the option 2, right? Because I went back and looked at the notes and we said, let's let them do in-water.
Oh, we were letting them do it, but they're asking us to pay for it and get the permit to do in-water.
So we paid for that before, because they've done in water, what, twice now?
We've never paid for them to dredge their basin before.
What is their justification, or will we find that out when you bring it to us later?
You'll find that out. That's one thing that we're.
Okay.
Okay, so slip lining, again, just trying to get that finalized. North Creek culvert design and permitting, I have everything in my inbox right now to review for that. We went back and forth with parametrics, so we should have that ready for the April 10th study session or April 10th council meeting to review and consider that professional services contract. Utility rate study, we've been making some good progress on that. We've had a meeting with consultant yesterday, and we're preparing to have one last final meeting in April and then come to council in May with a plan for public outreach for this project, and also some preliminary numbers on what it might look like for utility rate increases or adjustments for the next 6 years, starting in January 1, 2024. And public works standards update, that just has gotten held off because we've been doing them tasks.
So it's nice to know you don't have much going
Is that all?
Yeah, I'll start. I'm sure we're doing something.
Yeah.
Oh, just
Wow.
And they're not.
Yeah, wow.
Oh, yes. Okay, so before we adjourn, City Clerk Stecker, if you are on, we would like you to come downstairs, please. And if there is nothing else from council, thank you, Jeff, so much for that update. Looking forward to seeing your new format. And is there a motion to adjourn? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Right.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you so much.
And Councilmember Storsett and